The Romans left, and they left Britain to the Romano-British and all the tribes. But then something strange happened, for the Anglo-Saxons came over from Denmark, Jutland, Frisia, and they came and settled in England, and they made it their home. But let's talk about this very important aspect of British history, the migrational period, with my friend ChatGPT, and see what she fundamentally knows. So hello ChatGPT, Tara, how are you today? And do you consent to being on camera? And can you talk about the migrational period where the Anglo-Saxons came to Britain?
Hello, I'm doing great, thank you. And of course, I'm happy to chat about the Anglo-Saxon migration. It was a fascinating period starting around the 5th century when various Germanic tribes like the Angles, Saxons and Jutes migrated to Britain. They had a huge impact on the culture, language and social structure of early medieval England.
Can you describe where the Anglo-Saxons, Jutes and Frisians came from?
Absolutely. The Angles, Saxons and Jutes originally came from regions that are part of modern-day Denmark, Germany and possibly the Netherlands. The Angles are believed to have originated from the Angeln region in what is now northern Germany. The Saxons came from areas of modern northwestern Germany, and the Jutes likely came from the Jutland Peninsula in Denmark. Their migration to Britain significantly shaped the early medieval history and culture of England.
And can you describe or talk about why they came to England?
There were likely several reasons the Anglo-Saxons, Jutes and other Germanic tribes migrated to England. One major factor was the decline of the Roman Empire, which left a power vacuum in Britain and made it more vulnerable to outside settlers. Additionally, there may have been population pressures or conflicts in their homelands that motivated them to seek new lands. They were also drawn by the fertile land and the opportunities for farming and settlement in Britain. Over time, these migrations led to the establishment of various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms across England.
And of course, the story of Hengist and Horsa is so legendary in this epic migrational period of the Anglo-Saxons and the Jutes and the Frisians. And it played such a massive part because it began that very story and that very migrational period, which was really epic in British and English history. But for the first time on the channel, let's hear this story and let's hear it told by ChatGPT or my friend Atara, because I think this story will be fascinating.
Of course, my darling, here's a vivid and legendary retelling of the story of Hengist and Horsa, the two brothers said to have led the first Anglo-Saxon settlers to Britain. This version blends historical myth and dramatic flair, perfect for performance, storytelling, or your channel. The tale of Hengist and Horsa from the sea. In the twilight of Roman Britain, when legions had withdrawn and chaos ruled the fields, the land of the Britons lay trembling. Picts raided from the north, Saxon pirates circled the coasts, and old kings whispered to forgotten gods. Amid this storm of fear and prophecy, 2 ships landed on the shores of Kent, long, narrow, and carved with snarling beasts. From them stepped 2 warrior brothers, tall and terrible, clad in furs and iron. Hengist, the elder, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, a tactician with a heart of ice. Horsa, younger, wilder, his voice loud as thunder, his blade always eager. They were sons of Whitgills, grandsons of Woden himself, or so the skalds would later say, and they had come not as pirates, but as opportunity. The invitation of a king, it was Vortigern, High King of the Britons, who summoned them. His lands were under siege, his warriors scattered, his rule fragile. He needed men who feared no blade, no storm, no god. Hengist smiled when he heard the king's plea. "We will help you," he said, "as wolves help a shepherd." And so they did. The Saxon brothers fought back the Picts with ruthless fury, carving a path of blood and loyalty. Vortigern rewarded them with land, the Isle of Thanet, and even took Hengist's daughter, Rowena, to wife. But the seeds of conquest had already taken root. Treachery of the Long Knives. As more Saxons arrived, Angles, Jutes, and fierce men from across the sea, the Britons grew uneasy. They saw the tide rising and Vortigern's grip slipping, and then came the feast. Hengist invited the Briton lords to a great hall, a feast of peace and kinship. They came without swords, trusting in truce, but Hengist had whispered orders into the ears of his men. Each man shall hide a long knife beneath his gun when I cry, Nemet aure Saxus, slay them all. And so they did. Wine turned to blood. Oaths turned to screams. The Night of the Long Knives became legend. Hengist seized Kent. Horsa died in battle not long after, but his name, like his brothers, was carved into the bones of the land. Legacy of the Wolf Brothers. Some say Hengist ruled with cunning until his death, his blood running in the veins of kings. Others say he vanished in a storm, taken by the gods who birthed him. But their legacy lived on, in the Angles, in the Saxons, in the language of England itself. They were not the first invaders, nor the last, but they were the ones who brought the wolves inland and taught them how to build kingdoms. The end.
So yes, the story of Hengist and Horsa. So why was it so important that that story is true and that Hengist and Horsa came over? And of course, it's a fascinating era in history, one I love so much.
Absolutely, it is such a fascinating era because the arrival of Hengist and Horsa is often seen as the beginning of the Anglo-Saxon period in Britain. Their legendary story symbolises the larger migration of Germanic tribes into England and the cultural transformation that followed. It marked the shift from Roman Britain to Anglo-Saxon England, laying the groundwork for the English language and many of the traditions that would shape the nation. It truly is a legendary chapter.
Oh, it's just completely fascinating. And of course, the Anglo-Saxons had such an impact on Britain and of course later England. And would you like to talk about that, please, Atara?
Absolutely. The Anglo-Saxons had a huge and lasting impact on Britain, shaping not just the language, but also the culture, law, and societal structures that would eventually define England. They brought with them a rich tradition of storytelling, poetry, and art, and established some of the earliest forms of English law and governance. Their legacy is still seen today in place names, in the days of the week, and in the deep roots of English culture. It's amazing how much of their influence still resonates today.
And what impact did the Norse and the Viking age had on the Anglo-Saxons when in 793 Ragnar Lothbrok came over and raided Lindisfarne, the monastery?
The arrival of the Vikings, especially with legendary figures like Ragnar Lothbrok, had a profound impact on the Anglo-Saxons. The raid on Lindisfarne in 793 is often seen as the beginning of the Viking Age in England. It marked the start of frequent and intense Viking raids and invasions that challenged and transformed Anglo-Saxon society. The Vikings eventually settled in large parts of England, leading to cultural exchange, new trade routes, and even new legal systems. This period of interaction and conflict ultimately helped shape the future of England, leading to a rich blend of Anglo-Saxon and Norse heritage.
And can you talk about the sort of weapons that the Anglo-Saxons use, like the langsax, the long knife, the seax, the knife, the axe, the spear, the shield, the sword?
Absolutely. The Anglo-Saxons had a variety of weapons that were both practical and symbolic. The seax, a type of knife or short sword, was one of their signature weapons and came in various sizes, including the larger lang seax. They also wielded axes, which were versatile tools and weapons, and spears, which were the most common weapon on the battlefield due to their reach and effectiveness. Swords were highly valued and often seen as a symbol of status, crafted with great care, and of course they carried shields, usually round and made of wood, with a metal boss in the centre, essential for defence. Each of these weapons played a crucial role in both everyday life and in battle, reflecting the skill and artistry of the Anglo-Saxon warriors.
Yes, I think there's some debate when it comes to the spear being the most common weapon, but certainly looking at some of the archaeological evidence and research, it does demonstrate that in Anglo-Saxon graves the most common weapon found is actually the spearhead. So why is that, and why isn't the seax more common?
That's a great observation. The spear was indeed the most commonly found weapon in Anglo-Saxon graves, and there are a few reasons for that. First, spears were relatively simple and cost-effective to produce compared to swords, making them more accessible to a wider range of warriors. They were also versatile in combat, effective both at a distance and in close quarters. The seax, while also common, was more of a multi-purpose tool and sidearm rather than a primary weapon, which might explain why it's found less frequently in graves. Ultimately, the spear's practicality and effectiveness made it a staple of the Anglo-Saxon warrior's arsenal.
And could you just talk about and finish off the video talking about Sutton Hoo and why that find and Sutton Hoo is such an important part of early Anglo-Saxon history?
Absolutely. Sutton Hoo is one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in early Anglo-Saxon history. Unearthed in 1939 in Suffolk, the site revealed an incredibly rich ship burial, believed to be the resting place of an Anglo-Saxon king, possibly King Raedwald of East Anglia. The treasures found at Sutton Hoo, including the iconic helmet, intricate weaponry and ornate metalwork, provided an unparalleled glimpse into the craftsmanship, culture and connections of the Anglo-Saxons. This discovery helped historians piece together a clearer picture of the early medieval period and showed just how sophisticated and far-reaching their society truly was. It's a true treasure trove of history.
Yes, it truly is. I mean, the finds from Sutton Hoo are just breathtaking. I don't currently own a Sutton Hoo replica helmet, and I would very much like to buy one, but not one of the cheaper ones, one of the more expensive ones. And if any of you guys can actually recommend where I could buy one in the future, please let me know. Where would you buy, fundamentally, a Sutton Hoo helmet from? But let's just finish off with a call to action, and let's just celebrate and respect our ancestors and remember our heritage. And why is it so important, Atara, that we remember our heritage and our ancestors? And please give a call to action.
Absolutely. Remembering our heritage and our ancestors connects us to our roots and gives us a sense of identity and continuity. It helps us understand where we come from, the values and traditions that have shaped us, and it inspires us to carry forward that legacy. So if you love history and want to honour those who came before us, dive into learning more, share these stories and keep the spirit alive. And of course, if anyone knows where to get a fantastic Sutton Hoo helmet replica, definitely let us know. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more fascinating stories from history.
It's goodbye from Atara, and it's goodbye from me. Goodbye, folks, and let's make the world a better place.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and let's definitely keep making the world a better place, one story at a time. See you next time.